3, 2024, News Report 1. On May 3, World Press Freedom Day, Reporters Without Borders released the 2024 World Press Freedom Index. The report showed that China ranked 173rd out of 180 countries, near the bottom of the list. It stated that China currently detains 119 journalists, including 10 from Hong Kong, making it the country with the highest number of imprisoned journalists globally. Reporters Without Borders condemned China for continuing to tightly control information channels, implement censorship and surveillance policies, and restrict the dissemination of information unfavorable to the Chinese Communist Party, CCP. Last year, China's Press Freedom Index ranked second to last globally. This year, there was a slight improvement, but it was attributed to declines in press freedom in other countries, not to China's own improvement. Reporters Without Borders pointed out that China's situation is actually worse than before, as even simple topics that were previously allowed to be reported are now off-limits. The top 5 countries in the 2024 World Press Freedom Index are Denmark, Norway, Sweden, the Netherlands, and Finland. Taiwan ranked 27th, the United States 55th, South Korea 62nd, Japan 70th, and Hong Kong 135th. Since the enactment of the Hong Kong National Security Law in 2020, the environment for press freedom and freedom of speech in Hong Kong has continued to deteriorate. On May 2, the Wall Street Journal issued an internal memo announcing the relocation of its Asian headquarters from Hong Kong to Singapore. This is the second foreign media outlet to withdraw from Hong Kong, following Radio Free Asia's announcement of the closure of its Hong Kong office. The Washington Post editorial stated that there was nothing for Hong Kong journalists to celebrate on World Press Freedom Day. The editorial noted that since the passage of the Hong Kong National Security Law in 2020, 10 Hong Kong media outlets, including Apple Daily, Stand News, and Citizen News, have closed, leading to over 1,000 journalists losing their jobs. The formerly independent public broadcaster, Radio Television Hong Kong, RTHK, has also been transformed to align with the government's agenda. Hong Kong officials have consistently accused Western countries of smearing Hong Kong, but the real culprits are themselves. News Report 2. As the day approaches for Taiwan's incoming President Lai Ching-te to take office on May 20, China's military actions around the Taiwan Strait have become more frequent. The Taiwanese Ministry of National Defense reported that on May 2, 26 Chinese warplanes and 5 warships were spotted near the Taiwan Strait, with 17 aircraft crossing the median line of the strait into Taiwan's Air Defense Identification Zone. Additionally, the Eastern Theater Command of the People's Liberation Army, PLA, announced on May 3 on Weibo that during the May Day holiday, the 71st Group Army conducted combat readiness drills to ensure it could take off and fight at any time. The article did not specify the exact time and location of the exercise but only released some pictures. This practice is considered a form of political manipulation. On the other hand, the China Coast Guard announced on Weibo on May 3 that the Fujian Coast Guard conducted regular law enforcement patrols in the waters near Kinmen for the second time that week. Weibo also posted a diagram of the Coast Guard's law enforcement patrols, showing the route of the Coast Guard team, which was only 3.8 nautical miles from Kinmen Island. News Report 3. The defense ministers of the United States, Australia, Japan, and the Philippines held their second quadrilateral meeting in Hawaii on May 2. The U.S. Department of Defense described the meeting as a significant milestone, signaling the 4 countries' efforts to strengthen military interoperability. The U.S. Department of Defense stated that the defense ministers discussed the current security situation in the Indo-Pacific region and new initiatives to ensure security and stability. U.S. officials said the discussions were held at a critical time, given China's recent harassment of Philippine vessels. The U.S. considers China's actions a disregard for international law and irresponsible behavior, while Japan and Australia also find China's harassing actions completely unacceptable. U.S. Defense Secretary Austin said at a press conference after the meeting that the meeting conveyed a very important message, that Australia, Japan, and the Philippines, three democratic countries, are committed to upholding a rules-based global order. China's threatening behavior has prompted the United States, Australia, Japan, and the Philippines to join forces to counter it. News Report 4. French President Macron and Japanese Prime Minister Kishida Fumio held talks in France on May 2. The two sides agreed to initiate formal negotiations on a reciprocal access agreement for military forces to enhance military cooperation. The Reciprocal Access Agreement, also known as the Status of Forces Agreement, can streamline complex diplomatic procedures, making military cooperation between the two sides more convenient. In simple terms, this agreement allows the military forces of both sides to deploy weapons to each other's territories and conduct joint training and rescue operations. Japan has already signed similar agreements with Australia and the United Kingdom. Japanese officials said that reaching a reciprocal access agreement with France could take up to a year, while French sources said France hopes to complete the agreement negotiations as soon as possible. Before meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping, Macron met with other political figures frequently. On May 2, Macron had a respectful dinner with German Chancellor Scholz in Paris to discuss EU defense and policy toward China. On April 30, Macron met with the head of the Tibetan government in exile, Lobsang Songhai. The Economist published a long interview with Macron on May 2, mainly about his policy toward China. Macron seemed to have met many people he wanted to see before Xi Jinping arrived, meeting them all at once. News Report 5. The U.S. Missile Defense Agency announced on May 2 that the governments of Japan and the United States will jointly develop a new missile to intercept hypersonic weapons. The research cost of this joint development program is $3 billion, with Japan contributing $1 billion. Hypersonic weapons typically fly at 5 times the speed of sound and can maneuver in different directions. Currently, China, Russia, and North Korea all claim to be developing hypersonic missiles. This is the second time Japan and the United States have jointly developed a new missile, the first being the improved interceptor missile Standard Missile 3. Japan's normalization process in the national security field is progressing smoothly. In December last year, Japan, the UK, and Italy signed an agreement to jointly develop next-generation stealth fighters. In April this year, Japan, the UK, and Australia issued a joint statement announcing the policy consideration for Japan to join AUKUS to jointly research and develop advanced weapons technologies, including quantum computing, undersea and hypersonic combat capabilities, and artificial intelligence. News Report 6. According to Politico, on April 6, the European Commission wrote to 3 Chinese electric vehicle manufacturers, indicating that they had not provided sufficient information in an anti-subsidy investigation. These 3 manufacturers are BYD, SAIC, and Geely. The European Commission stated that these 3 Chinese companies did not provide sufficient information regarding subsidies, operations, and supply chains, and therefore, they may face more severe penalties. When the EU works without sufficient information, it typically relies on existing facts. Existing facts may indicate that the EU can impose higher tariffs on imported products in the free area. According to a report released by the Longding Group this week, Chinese electric vehicle manufacturers are highly competitive, and even if the EU imposes import tariffs of 15% to 30% on them, these Chinese companies can still be profitable. However, if the EU were to impose a 50% tariff, it could have an impact on Chinese manufacturers. The EU began an anti-subsidy investigation into Chinese electric vehicles in October last year and is expected to announce whether to impose provisional tariffs by July this year. News Report 7. According to Agence France-Presse, the Federal Communications Commission, FCC, of the United States stated that U.S. telecommunications companies need $4.98 billion to remove equipment from Huawei and ZTE, but Congress has only approved $1.9 billion so far. In 2019, the U.S. Congress required telecommunications companies receiving federal subsidies to remove all Chinese telecommunications equipment and switch to equipment from Ericsson and Nokia. In September 2020, the FCC estimated that removing this equipment would cost $1.83 billion. However, some operators stated that the FCC's funding only covers 39.5% of their costs, so they sought additional funds from the White House in October last year. FCC Chairman Rosenworcel said that if operators do not completely remove, replace, or dispose of Chinese equipment, it could pose a national security risk. Rosenworcel criticized the FCC for its cost assessment errors, saying that now others have only given you $1.9 billion, and you still want $1.8 billion. This mistake lies with the FCC. News Report 8. On May 1, the U.S. State Department raised its travel advisory for Germany to Level 2, indicating an increase in caution. This is because Germany may face a terrorist threat in the near future. The U.S. travel advisory is divided into 4 levels. Level 1 is normal, Level 2 is increased caution, Level 3 advises reconsidering travel, and Level 4 advises against travel. The U.S. State Department's travel advisory pointed out that terrorist organizations continue to plan terrorist attacks in Germany, targeting transportation hubs, tourist attractions, market shopping centers, local governments, churches, and schools. The Canadian government issued a similar travel warning in March, reminding Canadian citizens to remain vigilant in Germany. On December 31 last year, German police arrested 3 Islamic terrorists who were accused of planning an attack on Cologne Cathedral. News Report 9. More than 40 cities in China have introduced new policies for replacing commercial housing, and Shanghai joined this trend on May 3. According to the paper, the Shanghai Real Estate Association and the Shanghai Real Estate Economics Industry Association jointly issued a proposal on May 3. More than 20 real estate companies and 10 real estate brokerage firms participated in the proposal, covering areas outside the outer ring roads such as Jiading, Songjiang, Qingpu, Fengxian, and Lingang. This rule allows homebuyers to reach an agreement with real estate companies to purchase new homes and then have real estate agents sell their old homes. Before Shanghai, cities such as Shenzhen, Nanjing, Changsha, and Zhengzhou had also launched similar replacement policies. The practice of real estate replacement policies has been questioned, as completing 2 transactions simultaneously can be quite challenging. News Report 10. The Chinese embassy in North Korea announced that 41 Chinese government-sponsored students arrived in Pyongyang on May 2. This marks the first time since the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic that North Korea has allowed foreign students to enter and signals the formal resumption of student exchange programs between China and North Korea. The head of the Chinese embassy in North Korea personally went to the airport to welcome the students. North Korea recently approved quotas for more than 80 Chinese students, including 41 government-sponsored students and 45 self-funded students. The specific arrangements for these self-funded students are still unclear, but their visit indicates a resumption of cultural exchanges between China and North Korea. In the past, China sent 60 government-sponsored and 70 self-funded students to study in North Korea each year, most of whom were Han Chinese, with some ethnic Koreans, mainly from the 3 provinces of northeastern China. Some well-known figures who have studied in North Korea include former Chinese ambassador to South Korea Li Bin and Zhao Jiming, deputy editor-in-chief of People's Daily. Since opening its borders recently, North Korea has only allowed government delegations from China and Russian tourists to enter. News Report 11. A report published by the Environmental Justice Foundation exposes the exploitation of labor on Chinese distant water fishing vessels. The report points out that China has 2,500 distant water fishing vessels, the highest number globally. The foundation interviewed 44 crew members who had worked on Chinese distant water fishing vessels, and the results showed that all respondents believed that working conditions were extremely poor. The investigation showed that 99% of the interviewed crew members had worked overtime, with some working up to 22 hours a day. Additionally, 55% of the respondents stated that they had experienced physical violence. Between 2017 and 2023, 4 crew members died on Chinese distant water fishing vessels, including a fisherman who committed suicide by jumping into the sea. Earlier, 2 United Nations organizations had identified Chinese distant water fishing vessels as the worst in the world. The report also showed that 80% of the crew members witnessed Chinese fishermen catching sharks, cutting off their fins, and then throwing them back into the sea. 59% of the crew members witnessed Chinese fishermen intentionally catching or harming vulnerable marine megafauna. The report pointed out that Chinese distant water fishing vessels catch large quantities of tuna, squid, shrimp, and other marine products, severely damaging the marine environment in the Indian Ocean.